What does it take to be an award-winning photographer?
Yeah, man, that's such a good question, because it's a hard question. It's a good question too. I think that it's that piece like we were just talking about, like inspiration, like going after it. Like, do you want to be an award-winning photographer, or just want to be a photographer, right? Like, I think when I was younger, those are the things I would chase after. It's like, oh, could I win an award? Because you need those feathers in your cap. Mm-hmm. You think you do, right? When you're younger and you get going. And I say this because it's closing in on 3 decades that I've been in the creative field.
Wow.
I'm an old dude. Wow. So when you're younger, everything looks shiny and new, and you feel like you have to do this and you have to do that. And thank God that like Instagram wasn't around early in my career, because that would have crippled me. Like, I feel bad for the younger photographers now who think if I don't have X amount of followers or whatever, I'm not a good photographer, right? Like, it's like we're always craving, doesn't matter, I don't care who you are, how old you are, you're always craving that feedback, and you're thriving off of that, like the likes and the comments, and that's not art. Ooh. That's not from God, right? That's not biblical creativity. That's not the Holy Spirit. That's not what we should be chasing after. And it's sad in this day and age that it's like, oh, you're a good photographer. Well, how many followers you have? Well, you're not that good. Like, that's not at all a gauge on your talent or a value on your worth or your how good you are, right? Like, that's, some people are posting more than others, right? Like, I should be posting more on my own socials, but I really don't, because honestly, I'm just busy doing work. Busy creating, busy. I mean, everyone's in this. I don't even know if I'm answering your question, bro. I'm just way out there. But
where you're going, though. I love this so much.
Everyone's in this chase of content creation these days. I mean, look at us on this podcast right now, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, no harm, no foul. Nothing wrong with that. Businesses, people are craving content, and as creatives, we fall into this content creator bucket, which I hate that term. We're artists, right? Everybody's doing their thing. You've probably run into this with the things that you're doing, and we're in this situation of like, man, we have more content than we know what to do with. And people on the other side of that, they want content. And so as creatives, we have this ability that we can do that all day long. And if you could just tap into that and find the healthy balance of, are you doing that for yourself? Are you doing that for others or for businesses? Then, and then to loop back around of like your question of how to be an award-winning photographer, I'd say just sit back, let the awards come to you, right? Like when I was younger and I was like, oh, I'm going to apply to this contest and win an award, you know, I had plenty of those when I was younger, but it was later on in my career when someone just recognized me out of the blue. That meant more. That was more meaningful. We were talking about the airport art exhibit that I did, right?
Yes. Yeah. The one at DIA.
Yeah. So that was hilarious, right? So there was this, like, I've been working on this series of...
Yeah, it was bicycles, right?
Yeah, the series of fine art photography prints, right? Where I've collected old vintage bicycles and I go put them into these scenes all over the place. Like, I've hiked bikes into crazy places. People will be hiking on trails and I'm like carrying like a 100-pound steel vintage bike and they're like, what the heck? The dude's not going to ride that. And I'm like, that's an art project. Don't worry about it. Right. Like, and, but so man, I haven't really told this story to a lot of people, but it was, I remember I was still had a full-time job and I was pursuing this as a passion project, and it came tax season and I'm doing my taxes, and dude, nobody's happy when they're doing their taxes. So I was just in a funk, and I told my wife, I'm like, why do I bother with this? Why do I do this? Like, why was I trying to do art shows or art festivals? And like, why am I hustling these prints and like trying to sell my fine art? And she just looked at me and she was like, you do it because you love it. And I'm like, I'm so glad I married you. You know, I was like,
You looked at her, you
is
said,
my rock.
I love you.
Yeah, I was like, oh,
It was
man,
immediate.
thank you for that, because I needed that. Now, and then check this out. The next day, the very next day, I get an email out of the blue from the art curator at the airport. Wow. And she was like, we were Googling Colorado photographers. Your name popped up. We went to your website, and we were like, we want to have this guy feature his art at Denver International Airport, where 70,000 people a day roll through there. I was like, yep, I'm in. You know, I was like, wow, this is awesome. So that came out of nowhere. I wasn't chasing it. I wasn't looking for it. It came out of nowhere. And
ooh, okay. So I could go a bunch of different directions. And what's interesting that you led us into is you said, let the awards pursue you and don't pursue them, is kind of what I was picking up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to tell someone to do that. Like, that's just probably a exercise in patience and discernment, right? Of like, I don't know. I don't even know what that looks like, right? But it's patience, right?
And then also probably redefining what the award is. Because if, like your wife said, you do it because you love it, isn't the reward love worth more than the trophy?
Oh, 100%.
So.
Yes.
Okay, so then you're like.
That's a whole nother conversation we have on what's the reward, the award, right? Is it a piece of paper saying you won this thing, or is it the reward?
Yeah, because then there's a difference between award and reward. And they seem similar.
Yeah.
And if not, we feel as if they're the exact same.
Right.
But then you look at our beloved Eagles, even though we're in Denver. Shout out to Broncos. We have an Eagles fan in the room, so I'm just helping him enjoy this win that they've just had. But what's fascinating is when you think about just all of this current Super Bowl winners, you see them a week or two later practicing.
Yeah, they're right back at it.
They're right back at it.
Yep.
They're looking for the next Super Bowl.
Yep.
What does a Super Bowl win? How does a Super Bowl last? It lasts 24 hours. Maybe even less for some people.
Yep.
Maybe longer for some others. But on average, it doesn't last very long.
Oh, yeah.
The trophy's nice, feels good, but what do you want after you get one?
Right.
You want another one.
Yeah.
And so maybe the reward is something greater that you can actually have every day and not something that you that never actually satisfies. So, So what does it take to be an award-winning photographer?
Patience.
Discernment. What else?
Hustle.
Come on.
I mean, you got to work for what you want. I'd say this to anybody, especially young creatives. Like, you gotta go for it. You got to work hard. You got to hustle. We're both fans of a guy who has a phrase, nobody cares, work harder.
Ooh, yeah.
Right?
Cam Haines.
So,
shout out to Cam Haines.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it sounds awful as a statement. Like, oh, that's so self-deprecating, and people don't really care. We know people care, but, you know, at the end of the day, it's a phrase, it's a mantra, and it's like, if you can embrace that, like, embrace the suck. That's the whole, like, and it just makes things easier, right? Like, I attribute back everything that I've done back to the worst job that I ever had.
Ooh, hit us with it.
First job I ever had, 13 years old, worked in my stepdad's tire store. It was awful. It was beyond awful. Clean oil spills, clean the bathroom, all the grunt work that nobody else wanted to do, I had to do. And then, you know, I was puny. When I was 13, I was puny. So I was like pushing tires around and like covered in grease at the end of the day. I stunk. I was sweaty, tired.
Oh, yeah.
And everything that I've done, I look back to that and I'm like, oh man, this is so much better than working in a tire store. Yeah. If you work in a tire store now, shout out to you. You'll be able to go do anything. It'll be easy. But like, you know, you're sitting in an office, you're doing whatever. Like, I'd be around teams in different corporate environments, hearing people complain. And I'm like, man, I mean, really, at the end of the day, what we're doing, is that hard? Probably not. People are doing much harder things to get by than most people.
No, that's so true. And as it's sometimes it is nice to compare or contrast, maybe like what other people are doing or how far you've come. I think there's a really cool book called The Gap and the Gain, and it's like, oh, look how much I've gained. How far I've come because I can build from there.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really helpful, because it's like I could be somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I'm here, and I can't be somewhere else. I can only be here.
Yeah.
So having a good direction of where you want to go is super valuable. You said something in your first kind of like you were getting going and kind of excited about this idea of reward, and then you went on to social media for a second. I kind of want to revisit that thought, because you have a really valuable perspective, because you didn't have social media in your come up, right? 3 decades. You had your first decade, maybe social media wasn't really around.
No, not at all.
And so you had 10 plus years of curating who you are.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I'm even hearing you think about it and wrestle with it. Okay, so can you revisit maybe some things that you can learn or that you've learned and how you view social media? Because your view of social media as a professional, because what we're doing is we're talking to a professional photographer. We're talking to a professional business owner. You've worked for a lot of name brands in the industry, and really huge industries like the NFL, like different drink brands, like different famous people, you know, and and then you're also a small business owner.
Yes.
And so I think you're uniquely set up to say, like, well, I do a lot of things in a lot of different areas, and I'm an artist.
Very true.
And then how do you view social media then? Because I want you to even maybe hit like that likes, comments, followers section again.
Sure.
Because I'd like for you as a pro to elaborate on that.
Oh, I don't want to go on like this huge rant about social
you don't have
media,
negative
but
about
like there's good and bad with everything. Everything in moderation.
There we go.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a great tool. And people just need to remember that it's a tool and it's not the end all be all. I think, this is the dad heart in me speaking right now. I've got 3 kids and 2 teenagers.
Sorry, we're going to change your social media handle to Creative Dad.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
I like that. The Creative Dad.
Side note, there's a dude who's like, he's just a dad, and he teaches you how to like fix your flat tire and like whatever. And I don't know what the name of his channel is, but I saw it one day and I was like, oh, genius. But sorry, back to the social media thing. Use it as a tool, take it in moderation, and it won't be a negative thing. And literally just yesterday, my teenage daughter was like, hey, when can I get Instagram? And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, okay, well, let's sit down with your mom and talk about what that looks like. And she's phenomenal. Like, trust her. And so that'll be a conversation. But like in the creative world, in the professional world, it's definitely a tool that you have to have. Like brands are, even now it's like every business, you needed a sign out front of your store, right? Equally as important now, it was a Facebook page, and then it was an Instagram page. And I was just telling somebody yesterday that now it's like a YouTube channel. Like those are the key tools that you need for your business to get yourself out there. So how do you manage all those platforms? How do you push content out? How are you digesting content? And gosh, as creatives, it's so important for us to at some point stop consuming and start creating. I'm a big fan of be a producer, not a consumer. Be a contributor, not a taker. the world needs more of that, and we all need to be consuming less. Less scrolling, less sitting there, less living on the high off someone else's experiences and ideas. Put the phone down, grab a sketchbook, help cultivate and flourish your own ideas and experiences. Go on that hike, go on that road trip, go to that art museum. Like, we honestly need to do that more.
Okay, so when you think about social media, you think about your daughter. Can you treat us maybe a little bit like how you're going to talk with her? Because I don't think many people have had someone actually care enough about them to have the right conversations with them.
Oh, wow, that's
okay.
Good. That's good.
And so, I could you maybe even lay down? You don't have to be exact. Your wife probably will adjust it from what I can tell about her, which is why you married her, which is awesome. But can you maybe have that conversation like you would have, maybe even have it with me, like you'd have it with her?
I mean, yeah. I mean, your worth doesn't come from that. Number one, like, your worth is in Jesus, right? Your worth is in yourself, your loved ones. So don't be discouraged if you're, and it's always the why. Like, ask, like, why do you want social media? You want to keep up with your friends and stuff. I get that. You don't want FOMO, but if you're going to post something, I want to teach her to be intentional about it. And then, in this day and age, nothing goes away. Like, she needs to know that years from now, she could be applying for a job somewhere. And I'm not an HR person or a hiring, but like, if someone wants to do freelance with me, I'm going to go check out their social media. I'm going to look at their portfolio, but then also I want to know what kind of person they are. You could tell a lot about what kind of person they are by the things that they're posting. Are they egocentric? Are they, is it just look at me? Or is it like, are they feeding content that is worthwhile, that is educational, that is inspiring, right? Is it positive? And I'm not saying that it should be your social resume, but that's 100% what it is. Social media is your social resume, right? You've got LinkedIn for your accolades and your experience. You go over to, it's always the funny memes of like, it's the same person and it's 3 different pictures for LinkedIn, for Facebook, for Instagram. It's like, it's always the smooth, sexy looking one for Insta, and then the family profile for Facebook, and then the all business headshot for LinkedIn. It's so funny we become these different people depending on what outlet that it is. But what if we were that same person across all platforms? It's like, what's the intention behind it? What are you seeking? What do you hope to get out of it every time you post something?
I love the idea of asking why.
Yeah.
Well, why? And then just keep going in that direction. Well, why?
Yeah.
Well, why?
Yeah, or tell me about that.
Yes.
Or how to,
how are you gonna use it?
How do you think that's gonna make you feel?
Yeah.
Like all of these things.
What would the 50-year-old version of yourself say about it?
Right. Yeah.
What would the 30-year-old version of yourself that's trying to become the whatever, what would they say about it?
Right.
How would they have hoped you would have handled this?
Yeah. And back to, my daughter, it's like, in a couple of years, she's going to be shopping colleges. And if she's in any situation where a college recruiter is going to be looking at her, I got to imagine they're going to check out her social media, like, it's a whole nother ballgame, right?
How do you express your care? Because you do care for her. How do you express your care for her? As like, how would you express it to those maybe even listening? Like, why do you care to even share this with her? Yes, you're her dad, but why would you even care for those listening that don't know you?
Oh gosh.
Why do you care about them? Because I've seen you care about people you don't know.
You're gonna make me emotional or something. It's like, for the people that I don't know or that don't know me, it's like, absolutely love you, love them. because that's what we're called to do. As if we love Jesus, we love everybody. Love your neighbor like yourself. And that's like, it's your neighbor that lives next door to you in your house, but that's the guy walking down the street that you don't know that's coming towards you. You love him too. You love them. It's just be like Jesus and you share that love, talk about that love, and wow, it was just, but dude,
this is so good.
I mean,
but I actually feel that you care for others. Like you care for these two.
Sure. Oh yeah.
The few other guys in here, you care for them.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, I see that as a creative, but that's like a source that most people don't ever tap into. But you create secularly, spiritually, family, relationally, friendship. Describe, because that doesn't make sense, right?
Sure.
What you're talking about does not necessarily make sense.
Yeah.
How do you make sense of it?
Oh gosh. I think for me, there came a point in my career, right, where I was, I don't want to sound.
It's okay. What were you doing?
Like I'm flexing.
Let's talk about it. What were you doing?
Pinnacle of my creative career, where I was a NFL photographer, art director for an NFL team, and then moved on to work at an ad agency, and I'm a senior art director over all of Miller Coors beverages, beverages, right?
Yeah.
Very far from.
You're the pinnacle of creative world.
Loving environment, I dare to say. I worked with some good people, but the work we were doing, our joke was, come on, people, we're not saving babies, right? It's like, we're selling subpar beverages to who? Yeah. What's our market? Really? Are these the people that are changing lives or doing good in the world? I don't know, right? I've phrased that in other ways, but so if flash back to that, my wife and I had gotten involved in our church, and we started, attending regularly and living honestly how I wanted to live and lead my family and be a good husband and a good dad, and going to church I thought was part of that. And so that's what we did. And then, if you let that in and pay attention to it, watch out, because it will infect you in the best way. Yeah. Right? So you start to see how you treat people, how others treat you, how the projects you're working on is I use that term, life-giving, or is it not? And so the loving people piece and the thing, I learned a lot more about that. I stepped out of this corporate craziness and stepped into ministry. And that's a wild thing in itself, right? Just people's reaction, of people that don't have that initial loving reaction to things. So, I tell you this, I'd be hanging out, we'd be at a friend's house, or we'd be at a party, or we'd be somewhere, and with men, it's right, always, it's hey bro, what do you do? That's always the first question most guys meet, what do you do? And we size each other up as men, not only just when you walk in the room, it happens, but by what do you do? Because people, they attach what you do to your worth. And when we do that to ourselves too, it's well, I get my worth through my job or my career, where we shouldn't. And anyways, I remember is super funny full circle moment. I was working for Miller Coors. I had left the NFL, and we were doing a program for Coors Light NFL. So we're doing this huge photo shoot.
How much money is the photo shoot cost?
Oh my gosh, insane amount of money. And so we're back at Mile High Stadium where the Broncos play. We're down on the field, and we're shooting these actors, these models that are all yoked up that look like NFL players, and they're there. I know they're getting paid, and then there's 30 account executive people that have nothing to do with taking the shot or the vision of the shot. They're just the business side, and like they're getting paid to be here, and there's a craft services thing with all the food and that, hundreds of thousands of dollars going into this. I'm like, what a awful allocation of resources. Like, what else could be doing that? And that was the moment I was like, what am I doing with my life? This is what I'm using my talents for. Is this all there is to life? Is there something better? And I'm pretty sure it was the very next day that I went into my corporate advertising job, and I told them I was going to leave and that I was going to go work at my church. And they couldn't wrap their head around that. They're like, well, do you need more money? Like, what is it? I was like, no, it's not. I'm actually going to take a pay cut to go work in ministry. And they couldn't wrap their head around that. And, but it was the greatest decision I've made in my life, in my career. I won't say in my life because, marrying my wife is probably the top of that. And then, being a dad. But the transition there, and then working in ministry and learning how to love on people and just seeing ways to do that. And you get around really, really great people, because in ministry, like I was telling someone, they had come to visit me at my church job, and they were like, does anybody work around here? I feel like every time we see you, you're just like having coffee with somebody. You're just like hanging out. You guys are all just in a group talking. And I'm like, man, we're in the business of people, and so, I mean, you being in ministry, we probably have a leg up to the most people on, like, back to your question of like loving on people, right? Because when you get in ministry, that's the world you're in, and that's your job is people. That's the commodity.
Yeah, it's to take care of them, to serve them, to help them.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'm saying I'm trying to help your dreams become reality. I just may have bigger dreams than you have. So I just need you to know that ahead of time. You know?
For that person, right?
For them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I found that some of the best friends you will have in life, they believe in you more than you believe in you.
Absolutely.
They have bigger dreams than you have for you.
Yeah.
And so you need to surround yourself with people like that.
Yes.
And then I need to be that. Because if I am that, I will probably attract that.
Yeah.
And then we build a community that has that, and that people want to be a part of that.
Absolutely.
And then from there, we have and find what we're looking for.
Yeah. 100%.
And I think that's a game changer. I just know when I'm just even sitting with you right now, I just genuinely know how much you care about people. And the reason I wanted to ask those questions is because when it's obvious, we should probably just go ahead and just say it out loud then. Like if it's obvious, I should probably go ahead and just, let's just talk about the elephant in the room, right? Sometimes those are negative things, right? The elephants in the room, but sometimes the elephants in the rooms are the positive things that we maybe avoid because like, oh, they already know. Well, it's like, no, they may not.
Yeah.
But what's really cool is that when you walk into spaces, Todd, it's obvious. I don't need to necessarily hear your words. That's unique. And when we met the other day, it was a very fun meet cue, right? And when you meet someone for the first time, it was at your studio. That you have a bunch of different bays and different opportunities to help people record a podcast, and it was like this. It was like a meet and greet, cool thing. I love that. I'm like, oh man, I could be a part of those. Every day. Love that so much. And so thank you for throwing that together and inviting me. But you brought people together to talk about some things, but you brought them together. What I felt was to figure out how you can serve them. And most business owners don't realize, most creatives don't realize that that's actually the sell. The sell is not a sell. The sell is how do I serve, not what you can buy from me.
Absolutely.
And
how can we help you?
Come on.
Yeah.
So
now what can we sell you?
Yeah. Because it's not a sell.
Yeah.
Because if I can help and serve in any way, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
And then if you want more of my time, guess what? You'll probably buy it.
Oh yeah.
But it's not a manipulation thing.
No, I mean there's definitely advantageous things to both sides of it.
Yes.
It's like we want everything to be a win-win.
Yes.
And it's like if you come in and use our studio and that elevates the look, the feel, the production, whatever that is, the better that you do, the better I'm going to do too. So it's not, I mean,
because we can't do anything that we're doing alone. If we want excellence, if we want to keep growing, guess what we're probably going to need? People to support us.
Yeah, collaboration. Collaboration is key. One of my favorite things.
Come on, can you expound or expand on collaboration? What does collaboration mean to you?
Gosh, I mean, it's like a share of idea pools, right? Like an idea pool, and like brainstorming is one of my absolute favorite things, because that's when you're getting all the ideas out, right? And I have a rule, like in a brainstorm, there's no bad ideas. Everything is on the table. Doesn't matter what it is. And then you sift through those, right? But just get it out on a whiteboard, iPad, whatever that looks like, or everybody's writing on Post-its, and then at the end of the day, it looks like you're trying to solve a serial killer murder, like all the stuff's on the wall, and like but you're putting the pieces together to find.
Oh, yeah, you're trying to solve a murder case, is what you're
right,
saying. It's kind of like,
right.
oh, okay, cool. I was like, wait, what about serial? Is this,
we were watching too many TV shows,
this
but
is kind of like all over the place, and you're trying to draw lines, maybe even through lines to figure out how do we
to find the common thread, right? Of like, okay, what's the secret sauce within all of these ideas, and then helping brands with what they don't know, right? Like I'm in a unique position a lot of times to work with a brand and come in as an outside, like top-down view, because sometimes when you're in the thing, you can't see it from the outside. You're so close to it. And I've had to do that with my own projects. I'll be working on something and I'll have to kick it over to my creative buddies. I'll be like, hey man, I'm just too close to this. What do you think about this? Or what would you do? And they pretty much always, well, shout out to my buddy Ian. Like I can't wait for you to meet him one day, but he and I, we have like, we love each other. So we're not afraid to be like, yeah, man, that's not you. That doesn't look good. You could do that better. And then in a loving, constructive manner, pull it out the better, the better in each other, the good in each other, right? I'm good with words.
No, you're good. You're good.
But
you're saying when you have someone like that, they pull out the best.
Yeah.
And they keep helping you get better.
Yeah. You don't get better without collaboration.
Right.
So back to
you cannot settle with collaboration.
Oh, right. 100%. And so, and it's like that piece of collaboration gets better when everybody's like checks their ego at the door, right? And then, like, I've been a part of so many brainstorms where it's like, okay, oftentimes it's the loudest voice in the room is the idea that gets picked, and it's most of the time not the best idea.
I think most of the time, and I'd like to make it like a really strong statement right here, but I think most of the time, someone's future is dependent on their ability to collaborate. Like, I think our futures are actually really, really dependent on that.
Yeah, team player. Are you a team player?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think that we do have some lone wolves, but you're only going to be able to go so far on your own or alone.
I have clients, right? It eats me up that they want to be the Lone Rangers and just do everything themselves, and they wonder why they're not getting to here and they're staying here. And they're like, hey, this brand over here is doing this and this. And I'm like, yeah, because that brand has a team of people doing that and working on that and building that. And no matter how hard, I get frustrated. I'm like, hey, because, right? Like, bring in help.
Well, you're also not good at everything.
Oh, right, yeah.
So if
people
you
need to recognize that they're not good at everything. I know that I'm not good at everything. I have a bookkeeper, 100%. Numbers, not my jam.
Right.
There's only a couple of things I'm not good at,
hey,
Trevor.
Right.
Like
it's
wrapping presents and baking. Those two things I don't even go close to.
Numbers, wrapping presents, and baking. I love that.
That's three things.
What?
I told you I wasn't good with numbers.
Counting maybe is
I
tough.
tell my kids all the time, there's 3 kinds of people in this world: those that are good with math and those that aren't. It's always a slow burn, but
No, it is a slow burn. But I love it.
Yeah, recognizing your strengths and your weaknesses,
Right.
and then surround yourself with people that play to your weaknesses. Because we're taught as ourselves play to our strengths, but what about our weaknesses? We find those other people to play to those for us, to elevate and round us out.
So I want you to talk about a few collaborations you've done lately, because I've really enjoyed learning about them. And one of the guys that you've been working with, I read his book, and I love what he's doing. I think it's so fresh. And then you just did his recent design merch launch, which was so cool. The Nobody Cares stuff.
Yeah,
that's what I'm referencing. You had like a blank face. And so
a lot of projects moving right now.
No, it's okay. You got a lot of projects. I'll be specific. But you felt like God was calling you to be in ministry for a while, but then you stepped out and you took a big step of faith out, because then you go back solo, right? So because you have a lot of projects right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how do we go from 0 projects to all the projects?
Yeah.
Because now you're saying no at every turn because you have so much. So take us from that step.
I'm really glad you asked that, because you say 0 projects, right? And I think most people would assume that. Like, when I leave a full-time job to go start my own thing, I wish somebody would told me long time ago. I actually heard this on a podcast with I'm pretty sure it was Simon Sinek and
Simon Sinek.
Yeah,
you're good.
And
love him.
Who's the other guy? But they were having a conversation, and one of the guys, he said, "How do you know when it's time to start your own business?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm like tuned in. I'm dialed at this moment, right? Listen to what they're saying,
not just 2."
And he said, "You will know because you're so busy with that new thing, you don't have time for the old thing," if that makes sense. I took that to heart. So when I left my full-time job in ministry, it wasn't like I just stepped off into the nothing. I had gained momentum to where I couldn't do both anymore. Like, I was working in ministry, but if those of you watching, if you're in ministry, you probably have a second job. You maybe have some sort of side hustle. There's something, else going on you're probably working on. And so I had just gained enough momentum with that I couldn't do both anymore. And I'm highly entrepreneurial. And I'm like, if I don't go try this now, I don't want to be years down the road and go, man, what would it look like if I had done that? Or, right? So I took the jump, but it was just like stepping out and then, dude, hit the ground full throttle. Like, I left my full-time job, and like 2 days later, I got a plane to go to Honduras to film a project that I had lined up. And then I came back, and it was like nothing short of like just the trajectory kept going up. And then the first year I was solopreneuring, is that term, where it was just me, but I was filming and shooting stuff, creating stuff. I was kicking everything back to an editor. Shout out to my buddy Ken. We worked together. We worked together for like 10 years. And then a year into that, we were busy enough that he jumped ship. He left his job, came and worked with me. So then that got us through year 2 of basically the 2 of us. But then I got wise. My weaknesses were so many things going on. It was that project management skill. So I hired a couple different contract project managers to help keep me on track. And then the next best thing I did was hire a bookkeeper, right, to keep track of all the numbers and stuff. And then forward into year 3 of that, I brought on 2 more business partners to help with logistics side, business development, account stuff. And then we launched another business out of that, a studio, because we had been renting studios, and every time we go rent a studio, I'm like, come on, people, we could do better. And so I was like, I could build a studio. We could serve our own clients and then some. And then it opened up this whole other business model and revenue stream to rent the studio out. But now what we're doing, and I'm having so much fun with, is like, you know, you're coming in and seeing the space, and we've got clients coming in using the space, and we can help them in so many ways that man, it's just bonkers right now. It's like,
how big's your team right now?
we are, so we also do apparel on top of, because I'm insane.
Yes.
But as a
little psychotic,
you fellow graphic designers, logo designers, branding people out there will get this. Like, I did enough logos in a row that when you get the project done, everybody's like, well, do you know who I can have make hats and T-shirts or whatever for our company? And I was just never happy with the people that I was using. I was like, why is it that hard? I'm like, it can't be that hard. It is hard. Because I was like, I'm going to do this. I rolled up my sleeves and I called my buddy. I'm like, we're going to the business right now. And he does all the printing and production side. I do all the front end, the design and the artwork. And then together we've got an apparel business. So sorry, that's a tangent of like how many people. So we've got a team of people on the production side of the apparel business and a business partner in that. And then there is on the front side of that, there's 5 of us. So there's a team of at least 7 plus.
Come on.
And then a couple contractors, project manager, bookkeeper. Yeah. So we've got a team and we're rolling.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It's wild.
You know what's funny is I think most people think you know who you're working for sometimes, and then you'll have funny stories about, I didn't even know who this person was. I just was working on a project for him. Can you talk about a few of those people and how if you do a good job, you'll get another one. And you'll get referenced. And you'll build great relationships. And you'll keep great relationships. And because a lot of creatives don't understand the ability, a lot of creatives struggle with that, the relationship side.
Yes.
And we're looking for the next maybe big win, but we don't understand maybe how to define what a win looks like.
Oh, I got two fantastic stories.
Hit us with them.
With that, like
hit us with them.
With
hit us with it. Say it with your chest, Tom.
Yes, so it's
Say
like
it with your chest.
it's like this, the concept of burn ships, not bridges.
Yeah. Okay.
Two very similar but very different phrases.
Both involve
like,
fire.
Like burn the boats.
Right.
Like that comes from, the explorer who got all his men on the boat and they were going over to new land and they were going to fight. And when they land there, he burned the boats. So they can't go back. Like there's no going back, right? So that's how we take on projects. It's like full throttle, all in, all or nothing. We don't do anything. Like my stepdad was always like, I grew up in Wyoming. He's always like, if you're going to go to Chicago, don't stop in Omaha. Like you go all the way. You don't go halfway. You go all the way. And so there's that piece of it. And then the piece of don't burn bridges, right, is like, it goes back to our conversation about just loving people, right? Like you're going to disagree. You're going to have clients that you need to part ways with, jobs you need to part ways with. Like I left ministry, my job in ministry, but I was very intentional about exiting gracefully. And that's been beneficial for me because I still do projects for the church I used to work at. Lots of them. Like I'm going back and helping them, collaborating with them. We're building stuff. We're doing stage set designs. It's like crazy stuff. We just built a 2-story Griswold house for the Christmas stage just, a couple months ago. Wild stuff like that. And so I'm trying to unpack that question. That had a lot of parts. You're talking about, getting referrals. 100% of the growth of our business has been referrals.
Okay, you said 100%.
Yes.
Let's not overlook that.
Yeah.
It's 100% referrals.
100%.
Keep going. Sorry,
Yeah.
that was just a
No, 100%.
just an
I've never
important
ran
statement.
a digital ad. I've never posted, mailed out a flyer. I've never cold called a client. Everything has been a referral base. It is because if you love people well, you do a good job, they're gonna tell their friends about you, and the story I'd shared on another podcast, it was like just above and beyond. Like when we do something, we try and always go above and beyond. The client thinks that they need a blue box built, just as a general analogy here. And you're like, cool. And you talk to them and you help like get in their mindset, see their vision, put yourself in their world. They're thinking they need this blue box. You make them the blue box, but you're like, hey, what you really need is a red ball. And this is why. And they're like, oh my God, we didn't even know, but you're 100% right. Like, okay, so we're going with the red ball. Like they ditched the blue box, right? Like it's our job as creatives to show people what they can't see. Because that's our gift, is vision and creativity. And we every day we're creating something from nothing. You know, on my shirt under here, I had printed down the side. It's like the definition of the word creator. It's like something or something that creates something from nothing. Yeah. And that's what we're doing as creatives on the daily.
And to like give a precursor, you are consulting. You're honestly a creative consultant as well as a creator.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
What you're talking about is consulting. See, how does a creative have better conversations? For example, they think that they should do this. They don't like what the person's doing, but they're like, oh, I'm getting paid to perform in this way. Yes, but you can add more value if you know how to communicate as a consultant creative as well as creating. So how does you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
how does a creative maybe step more into a consulting role as a way to serve? Because I think that's what it actually is.
Yeah, and that goes back to like listening to the client's needs, putting yourself in their shoes of what do they need, what do they want, but what do they really need?
Yeah, why do they want you to create that thing?
Yeah. And using our own experience, because if someone's coming to us for a branding exercise or a package, like a logo, right? Like, I don't even know how many of those I've done in my career. So this is probably this person's first time. They're a startup company, they're an entrepreneur, and they need a logo done. It's so funny to me. It's like cute. Right, like someone starting a business, like, oh, we need a logo. I'm like, you do, but you need so much more. You need a visual identity. You need a brand voice. You need a logo, but you need other visual assets.
Have you ever seen a mood board
to back up? Yes.
Have we looked at a few things other than this one?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then knowing like, okay, you're going to need this in the future, because they don't know that, but I already know that. Because they're going to be like, okay, well, we need a logo. Yeah, you're like, you're going to want to put that on a hat, on maybe a vehicle wrap or a billboard or a website or a piece of apparel, and that all needs to be built differently. And so let's think about that on the front end and then drive it home, right? And so that's that consultant piece, right? So much of my time with clients is educating them on what they're going to get if they work with us.
No, I think if someone's going to work with you, I think one of the best things they can do, especially if they're really wanting to understand what you bring to the table, is to just walk into your office. I mean, what you're doing for Polaris is crazy. Like, that's a huge project.
Yes.
You know, you're creating this huge magazine,
Yeah, it's a 64-page catalog.
I mean, that's huge, right? Like it's all of their products. You know how important that is to them? I mean, my gosh.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, how long does it take, It probably takes you, what, half a year?
Oh, we started on it in October, and we're in the thick of it now, and it's tomorrow's March 1st.
Yeah. So it's like October, November, December, January, February, March. That's half a year.
Yeah.
That's 6 months, and you're not necessarily done with it.
No, we're not done.
And it's like, oh, man, you got to be able to manage those long projects as well as
there's a lot of quick turn stuff, and there's a lot of long stuff. You're absolutely right. It's all over the place, and you got to be like a creative ninja, right? Like you got to be agile. You got to be.
Actually, that'd be a good
adapt.
handle for you. What if you were the creative ninja?
Well,
Todd Van Fleet.
I did a the creative business that drives most of the stuff we call tactical creative.
Okay.
And so I call ourselves creative tacticians, right? And yes, it's because we've fallen into this niche. The joke is guns, trucks, and beer is a lot of our clients. We just flipping awesome as a dude. I'm like,
wait. That's like your niche. What people know you as, your guns, trucks, and beer.
Well, like the clients that we attract,
that's right.
And
I guess that's true.
We get referred by. So it's like motorsports, it's like breweries, ammo companies, Navy SEALs, Army Ranger, guys that now are like doing brands and things. My name is getting passed around with these dudes, and it's awesome. I mean, it was an unintentional niche, but we fell into that niche, so I embraced it. I stuck a flag in the ground. I'm like, we're going to call it tactical creative. But it's also strategic because the word tactical, if you look up the definition of that, it's just executing with strategy, which if you're not military, not whatever, you should still have that mindset and still have that mind frame of like, you need to have a plan. You don't go on a road trip without a map. You need to know where you're going.
That's so good, Todd. And man, as you think about, the past few years, okay, you're building this thing, you're going a bunch of different directions, you found your niche. What does it look like for somebody? What does it look like? Can you tell the stories of how your name gets passed around? Because I don't think people actually trust that.
Sure.
A young creative, they don't know necessarily how that happens. Can you reference maybe the that can that you showed me, and like you started? How did you get that job, and then how did you figure out who that was, and then how they passed? Because that's a really cool, valuable story with high capacity and high quality people.
Yeah.
Famous people.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, and even that was like a train of referrals in a row.
Please.
So, like for the young creatives listening, it's like if you do a really good job creating value for your client, they're gladly going to refer you because it makes them look good too, because they're helping, it's like, man, if you did something really great for me and my buddy's like, hey, I'm looking for someone, and I'm like, I got your guy. Like, I got a guy. Like, they're excited to share and make the introduction and be the connection.
Everybody likes to have a guy.
Yeah.
I got a guy.
I got a guy. Like, so I was filming a men's event out in Maine one year, and I'm just sitting back. It was kind of a break, a lull in the action, and one of the speakers came in to the men's event, and then he got done speaking. He came and sat at the same table, and I'm chatting with some people, and it's actually my client's wife introduces me to this dude named Pete, and she's like, hey, have you met Pete? And I meet Pete, who's the founder of a company called Origin USA. They make 100% made in America jeans and boots, and they started off with jiu-jitsu gis. They got the attention of Jocko Willink, the Navy SEAL guy who's written all these leadership books. So they're big time, right? And my client's wife was like, you need to meet Todd. And Pete was like, oh, you're doing all this stuff. I've noticed an uptick, right, in the branding, and so we end up chatting, and he's a graphic designer at heart, and so we immediately clicked, and like I had my iPad sitting there. He's like, "Oh, what's going on? What are you working on?" And I do a lot of drawing and illustration on my iPad, and I'm showing him that, and we just started geeking out, and then he's like, "Well, what other projects have you done?" And then he's like, "Dude, you want to move to Maine and work with Origin?" And I was like, "I would love to work with Origin. I don't want to move to Maine. This is way too cold out here. My wife, there's no way she would go for it. You know, I'm a Colorado guy, mountain guy. Like, I got to be near the mountains." And so, anyways, it started a conversation, and I started doing some freelance projects for Origin and have done several now in the last 2.5 years with them. Then I get a text one day from Pete introducing me to his buddy Kip. He's like, "Todd meet Kip, Kip meet Todd. Kip needs help with his brewery creative." I'm like, "Oh, cool." I jump on a call with Kip, and he's like, "Yeah, we need some beer labels designed." And actually, I think it was a T-shirt. It started
and
with
Kip's
a T-shirt.
talking this casually, right? Like,
Yeah, like just down to earth dude, a little crass. He knows what's up if he watches this. And he started off with a T-shirt design. And I'm like looking at their stuff. I'm like, "Hey, do you know I can do all these other things? We can do packaging design. We could design the cans. We could do photography, whatever it is." And he's like, "Well, slow down, bro. Let's start with the T-shirt, you know." And so I was like, gave him a whole like line of T-shirt designs for the brewery, and it's called Big Truck Farms Brewing. So that fits right in with what we're doing. Trucks, man. And so he was wicked happy with that project. We knocked it out of the park. Led to another project and another project, and I'm like bonkers busy doing stuff with them. He's watching. He's like, "Dude, you should be back working on our new package right now." But like, so 6 months ish go by, and I text Pete, and I'm like, "Man, thanks again for the referral." And it might have been a phone conversation, but he was like, "You know who Kip is, right?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, Google Kip Folks." And I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "Holy nuggets!" Like he's one of the founders of a little brand called Under Armour. I'm like, "Whoa, dude!" Like this, I had no idea. Like, and so I just never treated him like that. Like I just like, okay, it didn't change.
well, it wouldn't have changed how you treated him anyways.
No, it didn't.
Because
Well, it didn't change. It didn't affect my relationship with him,
No.
and I wasn't expecting more out of him or whatever. And I've had some amazing conversations with him, and feel like I've gotten like this free like entrepreneurial coaching from him. And you know, we'll have conversations because we're talking about his project, but he doesn't realize I'm soaking it in. I'm like, this works for every project. This is gold for all my clients. You know, he's got a different way of going about things. And so he's wildly successful. And he's got all these other endeavors that he has started. And I've gotten to, like, he bought a hunting lodge in Alaska. I got to do all the branding for that. It's called Bushwhack. And we did tons of cool stuff for that. And he's got his hand in a lot of things. And it's been wild. It's been awesome.
Man, and I just think what's important is for people to hear that. Is it doesn't matter that necessarily Kip is, you know, famous in, you know, the sports apparel world or the hunting world. It's that he's a human and you treat him as such.
Yeah, 100%.
And you don't change who you are because of the fame of somebody else.
Yeah.
You treat as if every person that comes in contact with you as valuable. That's why we began with how you treat people valuably.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the beautiful thing and the most amazing thing that you bring to the table is how you look at somebody in the eyes, how you talk to them, how you treat them, is you want what's in their heart or in their mind or in their future to come to life, and you just want to serve them at that end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say, too, that there's this piece of this, like, no matter what client you're working with, like what level it is, they're working with you for a reason. They've hired you because you're the professional. So don't be afraid to flex your experience or your professional insight to that, right? Like Kip and I have had conversations. Well, I'll push back and, you know, like I'll say something. I'm like, "Oh gosh, like he's done a thing or two in his career. He probably knows." But he'll be like, "Oh, yeah, actually, you're seeing it from a different side. So yeah, let's go with that idea. And so that's been really cool.
Well, also, like, to speak to that, high capacity people want high capacity feedback.
Oh gosh, you're 100% right. Like, I think he appreciates when I'm just blunt. Be like, yeah,
Yeah, I think that's bad.
yeah, like,
And here's why.
That is the thing too, right? Like, I was whining one day, like, to my wife. I was like, like a lot of these clients I have are a lot of these high capacity, these high speed dudes, right? Like, total alphas.
Yes.
And it was just like in 1 week, it seemed like there was something with every single one of those clients. I was like, oh gosh. And I was whining to my wife a little bit. I was like, this week's been really hard, really stressful or whatever. And she's like, yeah, but you're one of those dudes too. Or like, what's the problem? Yeah, no problem. She just reminded me, she's like, stop being a baby.
Yeah, come on.
She's like, that's why they're working with you.
Yes.
You're not a baby. And I was like, oh, I don't know, right? Like,
well, because a lot of creatives are sensitive in that way, which isn't bad.
No, 100%.
Necessarily.
We should absolutely talk about that for a hot second.
I would love for you to. That was the next question.
Because I hate the term artsy fartsy. I hate the term starving artist. Like, for you, any creatives that call themselves that, get that out of your brain, out of your vocabulary, just ditch that, drop that like a hot rock, because there's no reason you should be a starving artist. Be an artist and be successful and believe in yourself and do your thing.
That's so good. Can I tell you something? That guy right there, on the other side of the camera, he takes feedback so amazing, and he always asks for it. He texted me yesterday. He was asking for feedback, and I said, dude, this is why you will be successful.
Absolutely.
Is because you give it and you ask for it and you're looking for it honestly. Yep. Because you're actually trying to go somewhere, because currency of care is complete honesty.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, that's the currency for care.
Yeah.
Is if I know that you care about me, then I know that you're going to actually tell me the truth.
Absolutely.
Whether I want to hear it or not.
Yep.
Because you care. See, if you talk about an alpha type of person,
yeah,
it doesn't matter if they're male or female.
Yeah.
If they're an alpha type of person, they may not like in the moment that you come at them, but they understand that actually that's what makes them better, because that's what's made them win in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, feedback. Like, be able to accept feedback.
Oh, and
so many people get too sensitive to the feedback. Like, working in an advertising agency, there would be 3, 4, sometimes 5 art directors working on the same project or working on a new business pitch, and you've put your heart and soul and you've sunk all your ideas into something, and then it's like the chopping block. Everybody's presenting their ideas, and yours doesn't get picked. Like, it doesn't serve anyone to get butthurt about it, or to to get sad or whatever. Sorry if you have to edit that out, but like, if you're
good.
Just go to the next thing. Like, don't take it personally. So many creatives take feedback personally, and it's not personal. Most of the time for the client, it's 1,000% not personal. It's just not right for them, or that's not what they need. So it's our jobs to lead them to what they need. And if they don't like an idea, find another idea. Just that's what we do. Like, we're not short on ideas, so start over.
Yeah. Also, you got to be confident enough to know that you're not your idea. Like, your worth isn't attached to that.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's something bigger. There's more value. You bring more to the table than just ideas.
Oh, absolutely.
And so if you think about, because I love what we're talking about, and and then just even Kip, your conversation with Kip led you to work with Cam. And did you even know who Cam was, or did you look him up? Or
no, I'd known who he was, so it was cool so Kip is involved with the business side of what Cam Haynes is doing. So he was like, "Hey, we need some designs for Cam." I was like, "Let's go!" right? I was like, I want to do that. So I got to illustrate this gnarly grizzly bear with the phrase "Nobody cares, work harder." And so,
And that just released like last week, wasn't it?
well, it was,
Or that was
it
the
wa-
first one, and
it
then you
was,
released a new.
it was released a little bit ago, but what you saw is Cam had got Travis Barker on his podcast, and Cam was wearing the shirt I designed, hanging out with Travis Barker. I was like, that's dope. I was like, yeah. So of course I was going to share that. That was fun to see.
Oh, that's.
And hopefully we'll see Travis Barker rolling around with that shirt on one day.
Oh, come on.
Like,
You
my wife's favorite band's Blink. So, this,
which is
yeah.
so cool. And then so it's like, this merch isn't even necessarily like that wasn't your thing, but it's becoming your thing. It's like it's all working together, and it's dude, it's so refreshing to have someone like you in my life, just personally, because you're such an inspiration. And it's not because you're trying to bring all this clout to yourself. It's because that's how God's using you. And you're getting in spaces, and you're inspiring, and you're doing this thing that you're doing at a level that very few people ever get to operate at. And so I think what you have is, I know it's special. But also, I think the people listening right now, the people that are still left with us, they're going to want to and need to connect with you. Could you talk about where maybe even cast some vision for what you think is where you're going in with your life and what you have, and then invite others to maybe say, like, here's how you can begin to watch what God does in and through me. Could you talk about maybe a little bit of vision that you have? Where's this going?
Such a good question, and man, I don't even know if I can articulate that accurately and serve that question. But where my brain and my heart are immediately going is like, and not to sound like a flex, but like I absolutely have gotten to do some rad stuff in my career, and I honestly feel like I can help other creatives. And so what we're doing with this studio that we mentioned, we opened this studio, is, yes, it's a service. You could come in, you could pay us to rent the studio, but we're going to link you up with other creatives. And so my heart around this is to start building this piece of creative community. We want to have like meetups for other creators, artists, dang word creator, right? Like, musicians, podcasters, copywriters, art directors, interior designers, painters, entrepreneurs, whatever that looks like. Like, come hang out with us, come collaborate with us, come inspire. Let's feed off each other's ideas. Oh, you're doing this over here. Cool. Was thinking about doing that. So let's talk about that. In like next, this will probably air after, but next Friday, a week from today, we're hosting a buddy of mine's art show. You should come.
I'm in.
So next Friday, March 7th, he's a buddy of mine that he was a group creative director at the ad agency I used to work at. He has since left that world, and he's pursuing his passion of fine art painting. And so he came in a while back to have me photograph some of his paintings, and I was like, well, okay, what are you doing? Like, what are you going to do with these paintings? Are you going to sell them, or are you just painting to paint? And he's painting to paint, which I love, but, he's got to make a living. So I was like, dude, are you planning to do an art show or anything? He's like, well, I don't know. I was like, let's do it here. Trick the walls out with your paintings, because these are awesome. And he just lit up. And then he's been painting like the devil. Like, he's just been going crazy, man. I don't know, that's the best analogy, but he's been painting like crazy, right? He's been painting like crazy for the last 2-3 months, getting ready for this art show. And I can't wait to see what he's come up with. And that's, in a nutshell, like what I'm passionate about doing like this. So we can help elevate my buddy Tony and encourage him, and then other creatives. We just want to encourage them.
Yeah. I want to add something to that.
Yeah.
You are one yes or one no away from the relationship you need. I wouldn't know you if I said no. It was snowing. I was tired, and it wasn't the closest event to my house. A lot of reasons to say no. But I knew, based off of the quality of the person that invited me to come, that it was going to be worth it. I knew it.
That's so good.
I didn't know how.
Yeah.
And I didn't know you. I didn't know who.
Yeah.
But that's how we actually started a relationship. And then we had the most amazing conversation. And then we've been texting, and I'm excited about all the things that you're doing and how we can actually collaborate, because there's so many things just even in this conversation. I'm like, oh man, yes, Todd, yes, Todd, yes. And even just today, I've gotten to introduce you, to 4 or 5 guys that are doing things that would want to collaborate with you in this area. And it's like, how can I serve you? If we can build a community where we try to outserve each other, come on. Then we're actually going somewhere together.
Yeah.
And so I just genuinely, I just love where you're going and where we're at, man. So how do people connect with you?
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Because they're gonna want to see this.
Yeah.
They're gonna want to see where this goes.
Well, they're obviously following you if they're watching this.
Sure.
So that's great. But Todd Van Fleet, V as in Victor, A-N, F as in Frederick, L-E-E-T.
On IG,
not
right?
the band Greta Van Fleet, which has been wrecking my Google rankings, by the way.
Oh, gosh.
But, on Instagram, Todd Van Fleet,
yep.
ToddVanFleet.com. That will get you to all the other
perfect
things.
ToddVanFleet.com. We'll put that on in the show notes for sure.
You can get to the studio website probably through there, but Creator Content Studios.
Yep.
On Instagram, Creator Content Studios.
On Instagram.
Is on Instagram. And
they have a ready-to-go podcast studio. Just so you know, it's ready to go. You come in with nothing.
Yeah.
You leave with your podcast. That is unheard of. You come in with nothing, and you leave with your podcast. I think is that the tag? I don't know.
It is now.
I just made it.
We're extracting this clip. You're going to see this. You'll be like, hey, that's me.
That's okay. That's good. You come in with nothing. You leave with a podcast.
Yeah.
Like you leave with the episode.
Yep.
So I'm actually going to be using the episode in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, your studio in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah.
You can have an art show there. You can rent it out for meetings. You can have
Yep.
a photo shoot there.
Yep.
Great high ceiling space.
We have big photography studio as well as separate dedicated video podcast studios.
Yes.
They're all tricked out with the tech and
it's a
furniture,
phenomenal space, and
lighting.
there's backdrops, and it's amazing lighting.
Yeah.
He has a whole room where you can just rent, borrow, whatever, depending on what the type of equipment is. It's just lined with equipment, all high-end gear, everything that's the best, because you don't settle for anything less than the best.
Dude, go to Chicago. Don't stop in Omaha, right?
If we're going to Chicago, we don't stop in Omaha. That's maybe we should title the episode that.
Yes. Unless you're on the East Coast, they'll be like, wait, what?
Yeah, what does that even?
Yeah,
I don't know
we're
what
west
that means.
side. So.
never driven through Omaha in my life to go to Chicago.
Yeah.
Man, I love what you're doing. I'm all in, and thank you for at the end of a long week joining us in the Full Vantage Podcast. Your vantage point helps us see clearly.
Oh, this has been fun, man.
And
I appreciate you.
I can't wait to press stop on this just to get on your schedule for a few things. So thank
Love
you.
it.
And this is the Full Vantage Podcast. This is the type of people we're going to be having on. This quality, this valuable, they actually care. So make sure you follow them, and we'll see you soon. Peace.